friends, I want you to meet my favorite bilingual realtor, Elmer Garcia. You all know that a passion of mine is real estate investing, and having a great realtor by your side is essential. Elmer knows the city of Houston like the back of his hand, and not only is he highly regarded by his clients, but also by the professionals in his field. I can tell you from experience that he is attentive, trustworthy, thorough, and detail oriented. He knows what I like, y'all, and seeks out opportunities for finding the right property for me. His services range from residential real estate to commercial and investment. He will guide you the entire way, I can tell you that. You can email him at elmerg.realtor@gmail.com or call him at 832-512-5752, or you can also find him on Instagram, Elmer Garcia _real estate. And don't forget, anything real estate is his forte. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. We are in season 8 now. It's like so exciting how we are now at the season. We have a episode for you today where we're going to talk a little bit about surviving travel in today's time in 2022. We are going to be talking about an article that we found on the New York Times, and it was such a great article. It's the author is Christy Corbell, and it was published this month in July. But when we read it, it was so good, and we were really intrigued by everything she talked about. She's a flight attendant, and she's talking about how to survive, her tips for surviving the travel now. She's been flying for 2 decades, and she says that it's never been as stressful as it is today. And let's talk about what she's giving us as in terms of her tips for 30,000 feet of avoiding airline chaos this summer. If you have been traveling the summer of 2022, you have probably encountered a lot of lines, a lot of layovers, late flights. I know we've encountered a few when we were traveling this summer, and we were wondering what was going on and what's been happening. So this article really goes into a little bit of what's happening in the travel industry. And, in terms of what she says, for sure the pandemic has changed flying. She says that, the way that we board planes today and the way that we enter the airports, COVID-19 has really changed the experience for all of us. It's created a strain that's made everybody nervous. It's brought about politics. It's brought about just so many people becoming extremely upset about the way that airlines are doing things now. They're short staffed, they're overworked. The mask mandate has been a problem for some people. Some people want to follow it, even though it's been dropped. There's just been a host of things going on, and you all know that I'm a traveler. I'm a world traveler. My husband and I, Rusk, who's on the podcast today.
Hello.
And because, I can't have a travel podcast with him, he's our, are you my resident travel agent, by the way?
I think I am a resident travel agent by default. I think we just kind of grew into those roles as we, evolved.
People always ask me how we find the places to travel to, and I always say you find them.
I found them because my father used to have a travel agency back in the mid to late 90s, and I used to sell airline tickets and cruises and packages. And so I learned from other folks traveling around the world and the destinations, and it kind of stuck with me all these years, and the cool hotels and kind of hidden spots. So that's where I always got my education in terms of where to go, what to see, what to visit.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way for anyone to be introduced to traveling, is to really, find where people are going and what they like about it, and then get their recommendations and head out there as well. And one thing we wanted to talk about as well is travel etiquette. So we're going to do a little bit of travel etiquette, and we're going to bring a little bit about like how you should behave yourself when you're traveling, because we find that a lot of people get very, very upset over little minute things. And you've got to remember that airlines right now are short-staffed and they're overworked.
Well, traveling can be a stressful experience. And some of my friends that tell me that they don't like to travel, they don't like the stress that goes with traveling. But I always counter and say, well, it's the destination you're going to. Unfortunately, it does take a little bit of stress getting through the security, the long lines, the delayed flights, the lost baggage. But the benefit always supersedes the con in this particular situation and where you're going. Once you get there, you always kind of feel like it's better than having to deal with all that, because it's not all the time. It's just some of the time. So I think what we had come across this article in the New York Times the other day, and I think it has a lot of good tips to helping travelers out there manage the stressful environment, particularly post-pandemic. And what the article focuses on is how to make your trip less stressful
Right.
after the pandemic, because the airlines honestly are catching up. They furlough, they let go a lot of former employees when the planes were grounded. A lot of early retirement packages is from what we're reading. And now, as soon as the masks were lifted, there was this influx of people getting back on the plane. It was kind of like a green light psychologically in everybody's head. We can go back. The COVID restrictions are being loosened around the world. You don't have to have a COVID test to travel anymore domestically. You don't have to have a COVID test to come back to the United States. There are a few pockets of countries that still require them, but the major travel destinations, particularly in Europe and in South America, they're no longer requiring the travel. And so what she refers to, for example, is because that there are this high demand and low supply situation going on in the availability of flights, is to book early. Find a flight that's early in the morning. Don't find a flight later in the afternoon. And there's two reasons for that. One reason is that most flights can't get canceled in the morning because there's an available supply of flight attendants, ground crew, and pilots, because most of them are achieving that 12 to 16 hour window that the FAA requires that they get rest. And then the other argument is that if you take a flight earlier in the morning as opposed to the afternoon, especially in the summer, less chances of getting delayed by a storm. Not a meteorologist, but when I remember from 9th grade or 8th grade science classes, as the heat builds up during the day, you get these afternoon storms, and that tends to delay flights. So,
and she says that if you're going on a cruise, leave the day before and count it as a vacation day.
Yes, leave the day before.
Don't go this exact day that you're getting on the cruise. Like, go the day before, consider it part of your vacation, maybe stay at a hotel,
explore the city, have a drink, right? And that way you don't stress out about getting there, because after all, ultimately, as everyone knows, it's a vacation. It's supposed to be an anti-stressful environment, and you're getting away from the daily grind, from the daily stresses. And so why make it stressful getting somewhere? Why wait till the last minute to do something?
Exactly.
And then you miss your cruise, and then you find out you missed your friend's wedding, you missed your brother's wedding, you're late to, something personal. She's suggesting to, obviously, and it seems common sense, but before the pandemic, it was a little bit more efficient, but now it's less efficient in terms of on-time arrivals, on-time departures. So she's suggesting that you leave earlier in the day. That way you don't stress getting there.
Yeah.
And then she's also suggesting that if you can, take a direct flight.
Yes.
And if you can, don't book the seats in the back of the plane, because it's not their job, the flight attendants, to rearrange so everybody can sit together. And she also does mention that if the flight is booked and there are no takers for compensation to take a later flight, the folks that booked their flight with the least economic fare are the first to get bumped off, the most highly restricted fares. So you're going from the back of the plane, the front of the plane. They're the first to go, and you're the last to check in. Of the restricted flights, they have a log of when you check in, and you're typically the first to get kicked off the flight.
Wow. Yeah.
It seems logical. I mean, it's just a market capitalistic approach where you pay more, you get better service. You pay less, you get less service.
Right. Exactly. So fly direct.
Yeah, and fly direct. And if you can't fly direct because of a ground crew shortage, and also because of the crew that handles the baggage, there's also a shortage there as well. She's suggesting or recommending that you carry on. Buy yourself a slightly smaller carry-on bag. We just did that because we're taking a couple trips, and one of them requires a flight change in New York.
As much as I like the bag, I'm thinking about how in the world I'm going to fit all my clothes in there.
We had a couple friends, at least who traveled through Europe trying to get to other destinations, one in Africa and one in the Middle East, and their bags got lost. It was a nightmare, and it was 3 days before they got their bags, and You know,
Yeah,
it's
no, that's a
it's
nightmare.
it's inconvenience either way.
Hmm.
Whether you lose your bags and for 3 days, or you take a slightly smaller bag and pack less and kind of make it work with what you got,
Exactly.
but carry the bags with you, and then you don't have to worry about it. So that's unfortunately the realities of traveling at this moment. Of
So,
course.
babe, what am I going to do with all my travel photos that I want? What am I
Oh
going to
well,
do?
you just we're just gonna have to take less of them.
No, we're going to take the photos with the same outfit.
You
every
have to take the
single
photos
day.
with the same outfit. We can
You
do
know,
that too.
but she also said, if you're going to fly direct, to make sure that you give yourself, if you're going to do if you're going to do a layover, not just when you fly direct, but if you're going to do a layover, give it at least 3 hours.
Yes,
Of a
critical.
layover,
Right.
which makes a ton of sense.
It makes a ton
Even
of
though
sense, right.
sometimes I'm a little annoyed with you when you do that to me because I'm like,
Yes.
why am I waiting here for 3 hours?
Right.
But it does make sense because we've been in those
But
predicaments.
the day is lost anyways.
Yeah.
No matter where you're really traveling, whether you're going domestically for 2 hour flight or 4 hour flight, you need at least you got to be at the airport 2 hours before. You got to wake up 2 hours before that. And then, by the time you get off the plane, you got your luggage, you get into an Uber, taxi, or some form of transportation, you get to the hotel, you've already lost 7 to 8 hours, even on the shortest flights, domestic. We're not even talking about international flight. So what difference does it honestly make?
Yeah.
If
You're going to leave a little earlier.
If it's a 90-minute or 60-minute layover versus a 2.5 hour, 3 hour flight where you can make the connection if you have to, then I say go for it. Right.
Yeah. 3 hours at least minimum. Fly as early in the day as possible. Fly, and you do this a lot.
Yes,
you do this to me a
right.
lot, and
Well,
and you have to warn me at least a few days ahead that we're
yeah,
getting out really
you've not always been the earliest bird, but you have gotten a lot better over 22 years.
I
When
have
when I
gotten
met
better.
you,
Thank you.
you were a Sunday 10 a.m. kind of girl, but now you're Sunday 7 a.m. kind of girl. And your brothers and sisters are kind of, they're kind of amazed by that.
Gosh. Yeah,
But
no.
it's
My sister has always been a really early bird, like early.
Yeah.
And she would come in and try to get me to wake up. And I was like so annoyed with her. Like, go back to sleep, girl.
yes.
Yeah, but that means, flight as early as possible because, also she mentions thunderstorms build as the day gets
Right.
warmer. So the earlier in the day, the better chances of getting good weather. And yeah, set your alarm early, get it going,
Right.
and eventually you can definitely sleep on the plane, which is what I end up
Right.
doing.
And she
anyways.
also recommends something that's also common sense is when you do carry on your bags, have it ready to go and stick it up in the overhead compartment because she goes,
And don't overstuff them.
Don't overstuff them because honestly, she did mention we're all waiting for everyone to get on the plane. We're waiting for you to sit down, put your seatbelts on.
Yeah.
You can't go anywhere until everybody's secured. So it's not that the captain's waiting for anything else.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that the ground crew's waiting. She goes, yes, those are things we're waiting for, but they're typically handled before or at the time you guys are boarding. So everyone, it's trying to find out what goes where and how to do it. Find the most efficient because as soon as we can get everybody seated, we close the cabin door, she said, and we're pushing back.
Exactly. And I agree with that. I think it's something that
Right.
it causes so many problems when so many people overload it.
Yes.
They either overload their check-in bag
Right.
or bring additional bags that are shit's falling out of them all the time.
Yes.
They get in there and then things are falling out and then it's all over the place and then people are waiting for you to get off the plane.
Yes.
Don't do that. Don't be
Right.
messy. Just, coordinate yourself that you have that ready to go.
And she does reconfirm it's good to follow the boarding groups on the flight because that way you get an overhead space above you. If you show up and then you show up late and you're outside of the sequence of the boarding group and there's no longer space for you, and then you get your luggage somewhere about 10 rows behind or 10 rows in front of you, that slows the deplaning and it slows the boarding process, and it just makes for an efficient process.
I must tell you, I know the place to go if you need house audio, TV installation, security monitoring. I am telling you, these people are so good that I cannot wait to share them with you. AVS Concepts is the place to get all of these things taken care of. They're the experts in audio video. If you are entertaining and you need music, call them. If you just purchased a new house and you want to have security, you've got to call them. They are the best at all of this for you. I am so excited to share them with you. They are new sponsors for the podcast. You will not regret having them in your house. They can put anything up and create the most amazing surround sound. I am telling you, when I watch my movies, I like to watch them with surround sound. And thanks to AVS Concepts, I can do that. Follow them at their Instagram account, AVSC_HTX, or you can also find them at their website, avcschouston.com, and tell them that Alicia from Vines by Alicia sent you, and they will take care of you. I promise you. Download the app of the airline you're flying, guys.
Yes.
The apps have valuable information. They keep you from waiting in impossibly long lines, and someone can get on the phone for you if something goes wrong.
Right.
You can also track your bag, which is something that we really love, and
Yes.
you love that. You
Right.
can see the bag going and coming. You know when your plane is coming in, and if your flight is canceled or if your gate has changed.
Right.
The app is super
Yes.
effective and useful and very helpful.
Yep. Download the app, turn on the notifications, even if you don't fly often, and it will give you all the updates to the gates, to the tracking of the bags. It'll give your seat number, and you can obviously download your boarding pass that way too. It just makes it more efficient. The airlines try to make the process as efficient as possible, much to your probably perceptive chagrin.
Yeah,
but they do. But
yeah.
people are just not efficient in how they do things, and that slows everything down. I've traveled all over the world. We've traveled all over the world. We've been to the Middle East. We've been to Africa, and I can tell you, it is very inefficient out there. It's a free for all, especially when you travel to the smaller cities in those countries.
Smaller countries.
They
Yeah.
there's no organizational system. It's
India was a perfect example. We
right.
waited maybe an hour in the line.
At least an hour in the
because
line.
they didn't have anybody
Right.
to check us in at customs.
Right. At the immigration when we were leaving, and it was a disaster out there for the longest time. And we were only like 3 people ahead of us, but the process was just so slow.
Yeah. So if you think it's pretty bad here in the States, be grateful for the bad that we have here. It is definitely way worse out there, and you have to put up with a lot of other stuff. And not only that, but you put up with like airports without air conditioning.
Yes.
In
right.
Turkey, we had a situation where there were no toilet seats, so you had literally peed in a
Yes,
hole.
right.
I mean, like, be grateful
Yeah,
that the problems we have here are first world problems, and we can definitely handle
Deal
those.
with them, right. Yeah, we're obviously a little spoiled
Take a
here.
breather. Take a
Yep,
breather.
right.
Be patient. Work it through. Don't get so upset about it. Just remember where you're going and just have
Right.
that in your mind.
And she does also mention that flight attendants, it's a stressful job. They're traveling. They're under cabin air pressure for hours, for several days out of the week. And she says, it's best just to be nice to us, and we will help you out as best as we can. Typical kind of customer service situation. But if you're frustrated and you're just getting angry with us, we don't create the rules. We don't create the mask rules. These are rules, the seatbelts, all that kind of stuff. Just go along with it. I know I'm probably guilty of it a few times. I don't like the seatbelt. I'm a big guy. I just kind of, I don't think that's going to save me, but I get the rule. I have to put it on, and we're not going anywhere until everyone's buckled in.
Everybody's done. Yeah, so follow the rules, guys. It's travel etiquette as well. Think twice about getting the cheap fares, y'all. Flights are full. If you buy the cheapest seats, you may not be able to sit with your family. If you purchase that cheap ticket,
Right.
they may not be able to arrange you and seat you where you want to be seated because you tried to save money on a third-party website.
Right.
And Rusk is going to talk a little bit about a third-party website and what that is. But be aware that if the flight is oversold and there's no volunteers to give up their seat, you will be the first to be bumped, and you will not be with that family. But you wanted to save some dollars, but here we go with the bargain websites.
Yeah,
What do you think about those?
I think I jumped ahead, and you just kind of brought that back up about being bumped. But I've never been a fan of third-party websites. I know it makes it more efficient to check the lowest fares because you are able to get all the airlines on the website at one time. In our situation, it's ultimately United Airlines and Southwest Airlines, but mostly United for us because we travel internationally, and that's where our programs are aligned to. And Southwest Airlines, unfortunately, doesn't do a lot of international travel. I know they do some to Mexico and the Caribbean and maybe even Central America, but they don't go to Europe, and they don't go to Asia or to the Middle East. So we're loyal to United Airlines. and it's just best if you do have issues to book directly with the airline, because when you do with a third party, and this also applies to hotels or to tours, is there's now a middleman. So now
Yeah.
there's now a
And
three-way
third parties
communication.
are like Expedia,
Right.
Booking.com,
Hotels.com.
Trivago.
And you'll see on the airlines' websites, and you'll notice occasionally also on the hotels' websites
Yeah.
that they're giving you better deals
Yeah.
to book directly with them,
book directly
because they
with
have to
them.
pay commission, an incentive to these
To the third
websites,
parties,
right?
yeah.
And it just creates a backlog for them on the back end.
Right. So you know what? You do want to, even if you sign up for like United.com, they will send you notifications when something is on sale, or maybe they have a promo going, or United Vacations has something going on. Those are the best ways to kind of get a good deal.
Yes.
If you go directly to the site, sign up for their notifications, sign up for their newsletters, and they will send you emails with
Right.
their promotions and what they're
Right.
booking now, and how they can make it better for you so that you don't have to go through their
The other thing I want to mention is that the third party websites do not control the pricing. The airlines and the hotels control the pricing. They're just a medium to find a lot of options at once. They kind of, they all pop up at the screen, and you can just scroll if you're looking for something economically efficient. But it's not that they're giving you a better deal. I've never seen that. When you go to a booking.com and you compare it to the price of the hotel, it's identical. The airlines, the supplier in this situation, the airline or the hotel, controls the pricing. They just promulgate that information to the third party website. That's it. So there's really ultimately not a better deal doing it that way.
My ladies, pack smart. If you are only going for a few days, you do not need to pack 2 or 3 bags. You really do not need that much clothes. Really think about how you're packing. That's going to make your life so much easier when you get to your hotel as well. If, for example, the hotel isn't letting you in yet because maybe you're too early for the check-in, they don't want to be, putting 3 or 4 bags in their back.
Right.
You really want to make it easier for everybody to accommodate you. You can't ask, again, travel etiquette. Don't go into a hotel asking or demanding that they hold things for you. They don't have to do anything for you. They are doing it out of a courtesy.
Sure.
And demanding that they have a champagne at the entrance, or to seat you for lunch when they're not open for lunch yet. You've got to remember that they are still following their own schedule. You cannot bring your American ways
Right.
to a country that's not America.
Right.
They're very, very different.
They care less. They can care less.
Absolutely.
Money doesn't drive other nationalities like it does Americans, United States. It doesn't. To them, it's more about, there's just a whole other social set of issues out there that drives people to work, and it's not money. It's not the priority. It's not on their top. But I did want to mention one of the things about third-party website is that there's ultimately really just 2 airlines in Houston. It's United and Southwest. So those third-party websites that give you Delta, American, back in the day, there used to be Northwest and US Air and America West. Those airlines all merged and kind of fell into those big 4 now. But those airlines, it's an oligopoly. The airline industry is an oligopoly, and they have a hub and spoke system. So if you take American or Delta out of Houston, you're going through Miami, you're going through Dallas, or you're going through Chicago if you're on American. On Delta, you're going through Atlanta, or you're going through Salt Lake, and of course they have like LA, New York. Everyone's in LA, New York. So you got to go through those hubs to get anywhere. So the only way you can really ultimately fly nonstop out of Houston is really just Southwest and United Airlines. So the rest of the airlines, unless you want to travel from Houston to New York through Atlanta to save yourself maybe $50 or whatever, then sure. And if the deal is worth it, then maybe if it's discounted enough, and sometimes airlines will poke at each other's markets just to grab a few extra flyers on their flight, fill some seats, then it's up to you if you want to spend all day getting into New York instead of a 3.5 hour flight. You're going to spend about 6 or 7 hours to get to the destination. But that's all those third party websites do is just give you that availability. But you're never going to get a nonstop out of Houston, with the exception of like Spirit and Frontier, and there's some small, more regional airlines. But we all have heard horror stories about.
Of course.
Right.
Of course.
So it's really just those 2 airlines. So I would just go to their website, find the destination you want to, and compare between those 2. And then if you want to pack on the extra fees for baggage, for seats, for checking in early, on Spirit or Frontier, then go for that, because ultimately my experience after looking at those airlines, it's really the same thing. It doesn't come out to much of a savings.
Yeah, another tip I wanted to add in terms of how we fly and the way that we pack when we fly is always also be ready for expecting the airplanes to be cold. Bring a sweater, bring a shawl. There's they keep the airplane cold for a reason. There's a reason why they do it. They worry about people who may have air sickness, or the heat makes everything just you feel nauseous. There's a reason why they keep it cold that way. So definitely always pack a sweater, pack a shawl. I always have a shawl that I bring with me, because that way if you layer up, you can take a layer off and you don't have to worry about, being cold. And it's definitely, uncomfortable for some people that don't like it to be like that. And you definitely don't want to use those 6 sacks because we've used it before.
Yeah.
I know I've used them before a few times when I get so nauseous that I do end up throwing up. And now, actually, I do ask my doctor to prescribe a nausea medicine, because I know that that's part of my problem. If I'm traveling and I'm on a boat, or if we're going up the mountains and I get sick going up, or if it's elevation sickness, I make sure that I contact my doctor a week or 2 weeks before my travel, so that I make sure that I have my nausea medicine ready to go. And it's prescribed to me because it is pretty strong, but you could definitely find the dopamine in over the counter, probably at Walgreens or CVS, but definitely figure out a way for you to be prepared for those situations, because I know myself and I know that that's something that happens to me all the time. So I definitely always pack that in. And also, just another flight etiquette thing that I want to mention is don't tell the attendant that they look tired. They are, and they know that they're tired. You're going to probably cause a problem. They're not going to take care of you, number one, but you're probably making them feel bad because they are probably exhausted.
Yes, right. I mean, I can imagine being on a plane 300 out of 365 days out of the year, or whatever it is, 250 days. It's definitely a stressful job. It's not a conducive environment for people to function in and try to not be fatigued.
And if they don't bring you your drinks, they don't bring you what you asked for immediately, be patient, my loves. Please be patient. They've got other people that they're working with. I don't know how to say this more sternly and more efficiently, but you guys have got to give people a break when you're traveling.
Yep.
You're supposed to be going for fun.
Sure.
You're stressing out because they did not handle you. Get rid of your American ways when you go abroad. Right. You've got to. You can't.
Right.
You're going to say, oh, I'll just give them a good tip. They don't give a shit about your tip.
Right.
They give a shit here.
Right.
That matters to a lot of people here.
Right.
It's different when especially
in
Houston, where the service is just top notch. It's 5-star, but don't expect that kind of service wherever you go. We've been in situations where we have encountered people that get to a hotel and demand a seat, and there's no seat, but they demand it, and they start to be belligerent, and then say, "Well, I have money, I can pay for it." They do not care, you guys. Be ready to learn how they do things there. If they take it, some places don't want a tip. They don't even require one. They just say, "You know what? That's okay. You don't have to. You can keep it." Just be aware of where you're going and learn what are the customs for those places you are going to, and don't impose yourself on them. Right. I cannot say that 1,000 times enough, because it is such a pet peeve of mine when I see these people acting like fools, and that's why Americans are hated so much, and Americans are said, to be spoiled. And yeah, we are spoiled, but don't act like it when you're going over there. Yeah, we are spoiled, but don't act like it. Even in Europe, sometimes they act the fool.
Yep.
And Europe is actually pretty well organized, especially when you go to Germany. I mean, it's the most organized country I've ever been to. Yep. Guys, that's travel etiquette. Please do not act a fool out there. Do not make us look bad. Really go in there and enjoy your time. If something isn't ready for you when you come in, find an alternative that you can do. We were in the Azores and we were there early. We asked them, can we check in early? They said, no, we're not ready for check-in. So Rusk and I said, okay, let's go into the city. Let's see what we can do until our room is ready, and we'll come back to the hotel when the room is ready. We ask them, okay, can you send us a text message? Sure, we can WhatsApp you, whatever. They will tell you your room is ready. But find an alternative if you have to check in at a certain time. Don't go to a restaurant and expect them to greet you at the front like everybody does. They don't do that. Sometimes you have to go sit yourself down and wait 5, 6, 7 minutes until they notice you and come out there. Like, it's just a matter of like really, really realizing where you're going and what's happening when you're going. What other pet peeve do you have in travel etiquette that you want to add on there?
I think you've said it all. I just want people to get on the plane so we can go. Want to get out of here.
Yeah. So if these trips matter to you, you can follow also the article. I'm going to probably put the link on the description so you can see the article that we're talking about. It has some of the best tips we have read in forever. We've been traveling 24 years now. Rusk and I went on our first trip in 1999. It was for my birthday. It was my first birthday trip. And when I met Rusk said, "What is the first place you want to go to when you travel?" And I had never been anywhere. And I said, "New York." That's where we went.
Yeah.
Honey, thank you for being here.
Well, thanks for inviting me again.
And
hopefully
doing
it's
this
useful
with me.
Yep.
And I don't know anyone else that has the grasp on travel.
Oh, well, just years of experience.
Pretty sure there's. Go along with it,
I'm pretty sure there's a lot of folks out there that travel.
I usually go along with you, don't I? I don't give you that much of a hard time.
No, you don't. We've both gotten better over the years.
I know. All right, guys. If you like what you're listening to, share it with your friends. Give us a review. I love reviews. I love to get your DMs with your feedback. If something worked for you, if something helped you, if it was inspiring, I love to hear it. This is season 8. We are grateful that you are here. We are grateful for you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Love you guys.
Yep.
You know what time it is.
Friends, here are a few ways that you can support us by supporting my sponsors: Elmer Garcia, Realtor, and AVS Concepts, Audio and Video Home Entertainment. Those are my sponsors. Go follow them. You can find the information on the description. The other way you can also find out of everything that we're doing is join our newsletter at tbbyalicia.com. And that's going to give you all the things that we're talking about, everything, all the resources, all the stuff that you want to know. The other way that you can also support us and keep our podcast striving is through joining our Global Vibes Insider community. What is that? What is the Vibes Global Insider? It is a group where you can come in as an insider and subscribe and join to the community. And it was created for you to inspire you, to educate, to show how you can craft the life you wish to live. It is filled with experiences, including in-person events, business masterminds, speakers, resources. You get shout outs in the podcast. We invite you to workshops. We get to go on local trips and even wine tastings. So how do you get to join that group? So you'll go to my website at tbbyalicia.com, and then you select the community group. And there's 3 tiers. The first tier is the secret tier. It's for $10, and that includes a t-shirt, a signed book by me, and a shout out on the podcast, $10 a month. The next tier is the Explorer tier, and that is for $25 a month. And it's a t-shirt, a book, and a shout out. Plus, I'm including a monthly one-to-one chat with me. And those are monthly one-on-one chats with me. You don't want to miss those. Those are amazing 30-minute one-to-one chats for $25. And the last tier is a $45 Globetrotter. And that includes all the things I mentioned before: the t-shirt, the book, the monthly one-on-one, the shout out on the podcast. Plus, you get invite to members only, insider only events, a welcome travel gift box. You know, I bring great things for my travels. And also I'm adding a digital style mood board for you. It includes styling. It includes accessories, everything customized and personal for you. Again, this is how you can contribute and you can be a part of us, and you help us keep our podcast thriving. I hope you join.